Alright, hopefully this sounds good. Might have some background noise and some wind noise. First time I'm kind of filming with this setup, but we're going to go over how to make the big game bands. It's a two-piece band with a stainless ring used to attach a float line or a belt ring. So you need a ring. I'm not going to go too in depth onto the sizes of the bands. That's going to kind of vary spear to spear, but you know, basically you're kind of looking for about that setup. You want the ring to be off to one side, so you got one shorter piece of rubber, one longer piece. That's going to keep it from being on your hand. You're going to need cutting pliers, something to cinch down the constrictor knots with. This is 2mm cord. I'm not sure if it's Spectra or Dyneema, but it's basically a sheath over another material, so it's like two layers. This stuff's like 800-pound breaking strength. It's all way overkill. You know, that's just what I use. And this is 1.8mm. This is going to be the long piece. It's going to go inside of your band. So we'll get started. You're going to take a short piece, short section, put it through your ring, and all of these just get tied with a figure 8. So pretty easy knot. We want about an inch or so sticking out. Okay, so that's the short piece tied to the ring. We have another section of that 2mm. This is going to be the loop that will attach to your polespear. You can make these as long or as short as you want. I usually go for about 5 inches. Something like that. Okay, so both of these pieces are for the longer tube. I'm just gonna get that inserted. If you have to, you can push it in there with something. Same with this end. And then I'll push those down in about 3/4 of an inch or so. This is the longer cord, 1.8mm, a little bit thinner. The length of this doesn't really matter. You want it to be at least half of your band length when it's stretched out, so it doesn't stop the band from stretching, but you also want it to be not overly long either. So because this ring isn't centered, you know, you can probably knock at least a foot off of that length. But you can always test it and shorten it later. The shorter it is, the better, just so there's less going on inside the band, but it's not really going to matter. So we're going to figure 8. And then do our best to make those match. That's pretty close. Again, this doesn't really matter either. So seems like that's pretty good. Now, this has to go through the short piece. If it gets stuck, use a piece of fishing line or whatever. And the only thing I'm going to do is cinch down this tag. I don't like pulling on the main line with the pliers. Probably doesn't matter, but this is going right in there, and then we'll tie that momentarily. Down on this end, we're going to make a loop similar to the size of this one. So now you can kind of see how the band is taking shape. You take just some waxed thread. Pretty much anything will work. Get some really heavy braid or something like that. We're going to tie a constrictor knot on each one of these ends and the loop on the long end. Okay, so now you got 3 loops tied and your short leg with a bunch of cord left over. I don't have a good way to film this, but basically what you're doing is clipping this ring on something and kind of just holding onto the tube, and what it's doing is pulling the cord in. When you get to the end, the loop will slide in and you can just pinch it and let go, and it's going to coil the cord all the way up in this tube. And when you do that, that's what you're left with. one more constrictor knot down here, and this is done. And just remember, before you cinch that constrictor down, you want to just kind of hand tight and then give this a pull to make sure that knot's all the way up against your constrictor knot. Okay, so here's the finished product. So these two loops go through the pole spear, take the whole band through it, just like you would if you had a single loop. So that's going to be through your pole spear. And then this will sit on your hand, something like that. And it gives you that solid anchor point for your belt reel. I mean, you can use it for a float too, but it's really designed for a belt reel. And now you have that 500-pound cord running through this. So if a fish was to take your spear into the rocks and your band gets cut, you have a much more durable fail-safe. And you can see there's a little bit of, you can see just like a little bit of rippling in this tube, and if you use the 2mm cord as your main cord, it's even worse. The 1.8 is really the best way, and you could do 1.8 for your loops too. I don't know. I just use the 2mm there for my loops. Yeah, there you go. Big game band ready to go. Thanks for watching.